You're watching ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Began in Miami, where Sam Hornish Jr. stormed past Team Penske.
Outside, clear.
The combatants headed to the desert for round 2, but this time the 1-2 Penske punch captured the top 2 spots, climbing to victory. Round 3 in Fontana, and Jacques Lazier joined the fight.
Now coming for the line, checkered flag is out, and it's Hornish. Hornish by just 3 feet.
Will there be another new contender today in Nazareth? Round 4 is next. Has won the Indianapolis 500. Nazareth Speedway in Pennsylvania, ABC Sports presents the Firestone Indy 225 for the Indy Racing League. The cars are on the racetrack, warming up, getting set for the green flag. Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Jenkins, your host for all IRL events this year, and we have come to the 4th stop of the season. This is the first time the IRL has ever competed here. It is a very cloudy and overcast day, and there is a chance of rain. It's the final event before the Indianapolis 500, but that will be contested on the expansive 2.5-mile Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Here at Nazareth, well, it's an oddly shaped racetrack that measures a little less than a mile. The turns are all of different radius. There is a 34-foot elevation change, and it's a difficult track to set up for, but Gary Gerald, one team, has apparently figured it out.
That's the Penske team, and Bob, while they may be newcomers this year to the IRL, they're no strangers to this racetrack. In fact, their headquarters is only a 45-minute drive away. And over the years, their drivers have put in thousands of miles of testing and competition, and in fact have won here 6 times. Gilles LeFerrin, Helio Castroneves, side by side in the front row, and Jack Arute, they've been fast all weekend. They're clearly the team to beat.
They may have home field advantage, Gary, but if you want to talk about a team with momentum, you've got to look right behind that front row to Team Menard and Jacques Lazier. They stumbled early out of the IRL season's box, but at California, they battled back, and they've battled back again today. Disqualified 3rd. Their focus has been and continues to be on the Indianapolis 500 in the Paul Page. A good finish today will stand well for them when Indy opens in just 10 days.
Well, Jack, ask any of these drivers, they all agree it's a very tricky track. There are a couple other words, patience and perseverance. That's how you're going to win here today, but it's not quite that easy. That's opposition to what a race driver normally does. Sarah Fisher is back. She's subbing for Robbie Buell, and along with 6 others, the first time she ever saw or practiced on this track was last Tuesday.
And Paul, this track is difficult enough for the veterans in perfect weather conditions. With the cold temperatures today, tires will be an issue for all drivers, especially the rookies. They have to have some tire temps in the car so they don't lose grip and get into that big wall.
Now, they qualified at nearly 88 degrees. The front row, all Team Penske. Gilles LeFerrin with his first pole. Castroneves on the outside. In row 2, it's Jacques Lazier and the great rookie Thomas Scheckter. Philippe Giafone and Buddy Lazier make up the 3rd row. In the 4th row, it's Laurent Redon and Sam Hornish Jr. George Mack is inside row 5. Alex Barron to the outside. It's Scott Sharp and Billy Boat in row 6. In the 7th row, Shigeaki Hattori and Anthony Lazzaro, who's won here in Atlantic. Eddie Cheever Jr., Jeff Ward, that's row 8. The 9th row, Ayrton Dare and Rick Treadway. In row 10, Sarah Fisher and Robbie McGee. Back in the 11th row, Al Unser Jr. and Richie Hearn. Al Unser Jr., Team Kelly, had a surprise birthday party for him on Friday. Believe it or not, Jr. is now 40. In row 12, John Herb and John DeVries. But DeVries decided with very limited practice time it was not prudent of him to start today. They've withdrawn the car.
As we look at the weather graphic, you can see the air and track temperature. A drop of almost 30 degrees from when we start testing here on Friday. The cold temperatures, as we mentioned for the tires, will be the issue.
Field lined up on the downhill backstretch heading into turn 3. They're coming toward the green flag. DeFerrin, Elio Castroneves, and here they go. They gave a nice warm-up because of cold temperatures. Green flag is out. They got 6 whole laps of warm-up before they went green.
Paul, you can see all the drivers did the smart thing. They got in single file from the start, not trying to challenge each other for the turn. After about 5 or 10 laps, the tire temperatures will start to come up, and they'll start to lean on the cars just a little bit more. The race cannot be won in the first turn or first lap.
And fellas, that is one of the things that was preached at the drivers' meeting. Brian Barnhart just said 1992 Indianapolis 500. That was when cold weather affected starts and restarts as Jacques Lazier tried the inside of one of the Team Marlboro cars. And he said, remember, cautions will breed cautions. Use your head.
And speaking of caution comes out. That was DeFerrin, then Castroneves, then Jacques Lazier. Now, we had an indication on the electronic system of a caution, but it's a false indicator. We assume it did not go to the cars, though we use the same system that they do with the special light telemetry on board the car.
And that system, Paul, is a very good point, because the system that we use in the box up here is in every driver's car. That was implemented by IRL a few years ago to let the drivers know if there is an indication of problems on the racetrack. They can see it before they might get to it if it's a turn or two ahead.
So at the front, it's Gil DeFerrin. Castroneves, the second. Jacques Lazier is working very hard on him. Thomas Schechter sits just behind Lazier, and Philippe Giafone sits in 5th place right now. The team's certainly keeping an eye, as are we, to the sky, because the real question is, will rain move in to the Nazareth area? Will they be able to run a full race? 113 laps would be a legally complete race. 225 is the scheduled distance.
And that will come into play in the pit lane with everybody doing their strategy if things look like the weather is going to get worse. Come lap 60 or 70, everybody in pit road will start to look up to the sky. They'll be checking the computers in the pit box, looking on the Weather Channel to see what's happening in the local area.
And guys, we're already hearing that some of the teams told us just prior to green that they would consider trying to gain track position with a short fill on that first stop, gambling that weather might roll in. So a lot of strategic things to be figured out as we now get settled into a nice race rhythm.
Sam Hornick started 8th, dropped back a position, now behind Alex Barron, and trying to work his way forward. But of course, when you're talking Nazareth, as we look back to the lead, and they begin to encounter the back of the field for the first time, the trick here is to the race car is virtually a circle, which makes it very tough to pass.
The track is very busy, Paul, as we mentioned. You're always turning. It's less than a mile. There's 4 distinctly different turns at this racetrack. Very difficult to get your race car set up for a perfect lap. Now, as they come up to traffic right now, remember, tires are just starting to come up to temps. They don't want to go off the racing line too much. They're hoping the driver in front they're trying to pass will look in the mirror and see them, or they'll get indications from their spotters.
As they come up, it's John Herb, the line just ahead of the leader, Gil DeFerrin, and then Richie Hearn in the blue and white car, normally occupied by Eliseo Salazar, but he was involved in a very serious accident in Indianapolis, hospitalized. They did surgery. He is out of the hospital, back to his home in Miami, but it's going to be a very long recovery, and we wish our best to Eliseo Salazar. On board with Jacques Lazier. There comes Schechter closing in as they work around John Herb, and George Matt giving his car a great ride as he comes up into this fight too. Buddy Lazier moving for the front, currently 5th now. Consider this when you consider Marlboro Team Penske, starting with their performance in IRL at the Indy 500 last year. They have always finished in adjacent positions.
And they're doing the same thing now, Paul. Interesting to see. They've already picked up where they want to run today. It's a low line in all the turns. Drivers will try and see where their car's working best, whether it's going to be low or whether it's going to be high. The leaders right now are starting to demand the lower line and get underneath traffic, especially into turn 3.
Going back now, Sam Hornick runs in 9th. And he's trying to move on and get around the Hollywood car. Philippe Giafone, number 21, just ahead of him.
Now, Paul, we know Sam Hornish as we see him trying to run the outside of Giafoni going through turn 2. You saw the wheel in his hand start to go around and move underneath him. It's a very bumpy section in turn 2. The car comes out from underneath you a little bit in perfect conditions. In traffic, he's getting the dirty air from the car in front of him, and you see this group of car up in front of him right here, giving him a lot of dirty air for the aerodynamics of his car. Very difficult to get some good steering as he's trying to get underneath all the traffic and make a clean run down here to 3.
Well, as you saw them come off of that bump in turn 2, you saw John Herb's number 16 car really bounce at the back end of the car, and that's what they have to contend with. So now the field slows, and that's George Mack. We just mentioned him. He had a great qualifying. Now, Brian Barnhart, who is the director of racing operations here, said to the drivers in the drivers' meeting, you get on the grass regardless of the car condition, we're going to pull you out of the race, because they're very worried about crossing that grass and getting up into traffic.
Absolutely. It's a difficult situation here. I believe that he was still on the racetrack, so that rule may not apply. It applies for when you're coming out of the pit lane. But let's have a look at it here. Yep. Going through the turn. Looks like he's coming out of 4. The back end just got out from underneath him. And you can see right here, the car's already started to go around and go towards the wall. Very lucky he has not hit anything. Did the right thing, getting on the brakes just as it goes into the infield. He let the car come across the track. See, the car's already starting to come around behind him. He's got opposite lock in. He's trying to catch it, and the car just goes around. Now, why did this happen? He was behind about 3 or 4 different cars, getting a lot of dirty air, loss of downforce, and the back end slid around from him.
So the first caution of the day with Gilles de Ferran jumping from the pole to the lead. His teammate Catherine Nevis is in second, and Jacques Lazier sits now in third. We'll be back.
The Firestone Indy 225 on ABC Sports, brought to you by Firestone, America's tire since 1900. Delphi, driving tomorrow's technology. And Chevy, the cars you can depend on, the cars that last, will be there.
Well, we ran 16 laps without a caution, but George Mack spun down in turn number 4 and did bring out the first caution of the day. As you can see, his car has made it back to pit road. They're checking over. He did not hit anything. The car just did a spin out in turn number 4. We can't emphasize enough how weird this racetrack is and how the drivers have a challenge.
Very challenging racetrack. Very tight. There's really no chance to relax. Just a little bit in the back, possibly.
If you can get turn 3 quick, then you should have a real quick lap all around. It's tough to get the car working in both turns 2 and turn 3.
We run a lot of downforce, and then when you're right behind the other guy, you just lose a lot of the downforce.
The size of the track, it's really small, so basically you're going to be in traffic every lap, all the time.
The fact that it's so tight and there are so many blind corners that you're going into at about 180 miles an hour, and the fact that there's a lot of elevation changes makes it unique.
On board with Al Unser Jr. as he comes in for a pit stop, and he really benefited perhaps the most from this caution because he was just about to go a lap down when the caution came out. But now he and the others have a chance to come in and get some pit work done and go back out for some more racing. Well, the first 16 laps of this race saw a lot of good competition up front, and of course we did see some lapping of the field as the faster cars begin to catch the others, and that's what we'll look for all day, as the traffic will indeed play a very huge role in the activity here at Nazareth Speedway. The Indianapolis 500-mile race is coming up, and our coverage begins on Saturday, May the 11th. That will be the day that they run for the pole position for the 86th running of the Indianapolis 500. That's Scott Sharp's onboard camera as he warms up his tires and gets set for the restart. Here at Nazareth, we have completed 21 laps now. Gilles de Ferran, Elio Castro-Neves, Jacques Lazier, Thomas Scheckter and Buddy Lazier are shown as the top 5. And Scott, George Mack, very lucky that he did not hit anything and is going to be able to get back into competition.
Well, he's very lucky. Anytime you spin at a 1-mile track, especially here at Nazareth, if you don't hit the wall.
Speaking of trouble.
There you go. Cold tires possibly again. Laurent Redon. 2 rookies we've had the problems with here, guys. We talked about that at the beginning of the show.
In fact, let's get into that whole situation because remember 91 Indianapolis, the cold tires, even when you're going slow, the tires are now cooling off. You got some, or 92 Indianapolis, you've got some serious considerations on a restart.
Absolutely. We talked about the tires. Tires are built to be working in conditions of 85 to 90 degrees for optimum type of temperatures right now. We do not have a situation here today where we'll see those type of temperatures. Drivers are going to have to be very diligent on spinning the tires on restarts to get some heat into them, almost like a drag car, to get ready for the restarts.
22 laps completed of the 225 in the Firestone Indy 225. Gilles de Ferran is at the front.
Ready to go back to green flag racing in the Firestone Indy 225. It is a very cool day here.
Paul, look at the track temperature, 57 degrees. Track temperature always usually around 80 to 100 degrees to make those tires work. As we mentioned just before we got off for commercial, the drivers now would be spinning their tires on acceleration, coming up to the restart to try and get some heat in them so the back end of the car won't slide around, which is the 2 instances that we've seen so far today.
George Mack, Laurent Redon will both be able to continue on in competition. Speed comes up, Gilles de Ferran on point. Elio Castroneves second, Jacques Lazier third as they come back to the green flag. There's how they came back to the green. Now both Lazier and Thomas Scheckter trying to close on Elio Castroneves.
Thomas Scheckter is reporting in during that caution the car is just a tad loose. They asked him if they wanted to make a change. He said, no, the track will come to us. But so far, this rookie likes what he sees from his Red Bull entry.
Yeah, that's a veteran-like comment.
It certainly is. Usually when a car's a little bit loose, the driver's just trying to stop the back end from going around on him, much like we've seen here in the 2 instances already today. Thomas Scheckter, as Eddie has said before, his teammate and boss, boy, he likes to run a car loose and on the edge.
Thomas Scheckter, when he was talking about this track, said that it's interesting. It's very much like a road course because of all the different moments of roll that the race car and the driver see throughout the run. So I guess given that, those with extensive road racing experience might have a slight advantage here. On board Lazier.
Absolutely, as we're on board with Lazier right now, a little bit of moisture on his lens. We're not sure if that's precipitation coming from the rain or if that's actually something coming off the cars that are in front of him. But getting back to Thomas Scheckter, he's used to running road courses. This is only his 4th oval track experience that he's ever had, and you must say he's doing a great job.
One of the things that Jacques Lazier talked about was the fact that if this racetrack had just 4 more feet, Jacques Lazier said it would stop being a roller coaster and it would be a side-by-side opportunity for cars. So when he was queried as to, well, does that mean that you can't pass? He said no. You just have to pick your passes. And Jacques told me, he says, what you can't do is pass more than one car at one time. He said, that's what sometimes can be very frustrating.
Back on board with Jacques Lazier. Now, let's listen to him for a bit, Scott, because he's into the limiter.
And the limiter you heard right there. He could be running in 5th gear, not using 6th right now. 6th might be a fuel strategy gear, as we call it, just a longer gear to make the RPMs lower in the engine to conserve fuel. Or if they've chosen the 6th gear that he's running in right now, it could be a situation like we saw earlier in the year with Sam Hornish, where he's just not going to get any more speed out of the car.
And you look from the Johns Manville car up through 3rd, 2nd, and 1st, and you can see already that Gilles de Ferran is the leader. Is beginning to overlap the field once again. Some cars on the move, though everybody is being careful. Billy Boat went from 12th to 10th. Jeff Ward went from 16th to 9th. And 1/10 to 8. Gary Gerald.
Well, it's interesting as you watch DeFerrin start to get into that traffic scenario. The man that's normally in his ear as his spotter, Rick Mears, is not here this weekend.
Oh, problem. And that is Lazier. Buddy Lazier catches the wall with the right side, and Hornish is in trouble too. Think of that in terms of the battle between Penske and Panther.
Just before we saw Lazier hit the wall, Hornish in that big mass of traffic touched the back of Lazier's car, stuck him into the wall, and you can see the damage from the front of Sam Hornish's car from that impact.
You know, you talk about this track, how tricky, you talk about patience, and to see two great champions like Lazier and Hornish get involved this early on, that's a shock.
And Buddy knows it. You saw him throw his steering wheel into the cockpit, probably giving a wave to Sam on the way by. Just a busy part of the racetrack, 4 cars wide, everybody trying to get by.
Now Hornish is going to bring it back into the pits. We'll keep track of this while we see what happens.
Now here you see them 4 wide. Sam's trying to get himself through over here by the wall in between Lazier, and also the wall is not going to work. A lot of traffic coming down. See the touching that's going on there? Boys, I got to tell you, Sam Hornish was in too much of a rush too early in this race.
And what was suggested just a moment ago, everybody's trying to move around the 34 MyJack car of Laurent Redon. Giafone did it on the low side, but then they got bottled up on the outside.
Everybody wants to get down and get into the single line going into turn 3. This racetrack is really a single line racetrack when you get to the middle of the turns. But you can see now he's going to move himself to the right-hand side. Guys, that's just not enough room. It's not going to happen. There's the touch, bending the left front suspension of Hornish's car, unfortunately putting Buddy Lazier into the wall.
Oh, he would have been a champ if he could have gotten it done. But as Danny Sullivan has said so many times, there's only one letter difference between Sam and Trump. Car behind the wall. Sam's still in the car, though. I wonder if they're thinking about, they have such an incredible record of consistency, 99.4% finishing consistency for Sam Hornish since he started racing for Panther Racing. Pits are now open.
And, Paul, both the Penske teams are laid out for DeFerrin and Castro Nevis. And if it's a case of follow the leader, they're a little over halfway through this fuel run. I would imagine most everybody will follow them. Some may gamble for track position.
Well, Jacques Lazier is certainly going to follow him in. In fact, most of the field going to follow the leader.
DeFerrin hits his mark. Castro Nevis was trying to rush to his pit, had to lock up the brakes. We watched Gil DeFerrin. Wing change on both sides. He's out of here. Castro Nevis in a drag race. Gil beats Elio out.
And Gary, they just go by Jacques Lazier as the work continues on the Team Menard car, trying to take a full load of fuel, and it looked as if they weren't getting the kind of fuel they want. This is way longer than they need to be. This is not good for Jacques Lazier. They're not getting the fuel in. Part of the problem is the hole is extending too far away. And now, the frustration can be seen because they cannot get it attached. Jacques Lazier is pitted about a foot and a half too far outside the box. They finally pull the car in. They make the connection. Lazier wants to lead. The lap down. Oh, this is costly, Scott.
Absolutely. You saw from the monitor we marked where the car needs to be. The left front wheel needs to be on the piece of tape. He was about a foot and a half away. Those fuel hoses will not reach the car. Those fuel hoses are as short as possible to make travel time for the fuel coming from the fuel tank into the car as quick as possible. Unfortunately, Jacques just was a little bit too wide on pit entry.
But there was a lot of dancing during both that stop and up and down the pits. It was like they weren't truly prepared. Here comes the Menard car, Jacques Lazier back on the pit road.
Well, you got to remember, the reason is because they did not get a full tank of fuel. 35 gallons of methanol is held in these cars. Let's see if he hits the marks better. Yes, he does, but he's still a little wide of where he should be. They do top the car off. I would think that what Jacques Lazier must do is make sure that he doesn't allow his emotions to affect his driving.
It's a difficult time. You want to make everything perfect for your guys in the pits. When you come in, you're looking to hit the marks, If you missed by about 3 or 4 inches, you can actually get away with it, but that was just too far. Down to Gary.
Rick Reineman, the veteran who changes and is one of the longtime members of the Penske team, is hobbling as he comes over the wall, and there's concern after he apparently got nicked by Scott Sharp's car on entry to the pits. Reineman, right now, saying no medical attention is necessary. They were checking on his...
And they're taking a look. Tom Wirtz, the team manager, taking a look at it right now. If you remember that stop, you could see a crew member. We assume Reineman jumping up and down as the cars exited. They work on Hornich's car. We'll be back.
A full day of motorsports continues next here on ABC. The stars of Supercross take the track here at Texas Stadium in Irving, Texas, including Ricky Carmichael, who has been the dominant rider in the sport over the past 2 years. He's continued that dominance, but hasn't been invincible in a horrific crash last week in Pontiac, but he's got 8 wins already. He leads the series standings. In the 125 West, the 16-year-old James Stewart had his problems, but he's got 2 wins, and he leads the way. EA Sports Supercross coming up next from Dallas.
Welcome back to the Firestone Indy 225. They are still clearing the track. Sam Hornich's car is all the way back in the paddock area. They're doing what work they can on that car. Scott, there have been some other action occurred during the pit stop.
The pits are always a busy place. If you watch here, you'll see Scott Sharp coming into his pit box, and right there, you can see how his left front wheel is just touching the edge of the pit box and touching the edge of the crew member right behind the leg. Now, it's hard to tell whether or not he was perfectly in line or if that crew member stuck his foot outside of their pit box. Now, here we are with Scott Sharp turning in. Watch his left front wheel right here as he's going towards the crew member, sticks his foot out. He's just going to clip his foot a small amount. Now, these are the smallest pit boxes that we visit on the IRL circuit, only 35 feet in length.
Let's go to Gary Gerald.
And Rick Reineman is on the wall. Can you tell us what happened?
I don't know. I must have come in close and got the back of my ankle. I'm fine.
You all right? You going to stay working?
Absolutely.
One tough guy, guys.
Yeah, that's an ex-Marine right there. Scott Sharp under caution. Scott Goodyear, you can talk with him.
Scott Sharp, Scott Goodyear in the booth. Do you hear us?
Scott, how are you doing?
Very good. Very cold day out there, cold tire temperatures, and a little bit of pit action. What's going on with you?
Tell my team we're hanging in there right now. You know, traffic is just extremely tough. You know, it's so hard. It's really pretty much a one-groove track. Once we run for probably 5 or 6 laps, the tires come in pretty good, but it's just turbulence plays a big role in trying to get close enough to a guy that you might be able to get around him.
I'm sure cold temperatures on the tire are playing a big part today. Traffic's trouble, and thanks for your report.
Thanks.
Jack Arute, you're continuing to watch some work down in the paddock area.
And never before, since Sam Hornish started driving for Pennzoil Team Panther, has the crew been forced to take a car behind the wall and go to work. That is exactly what's happening now. Led by Kevin Blanche, the team has gone to work. They have totally replaced the left front suspension pieces, and now they are going back to work trying to reattach all the various items that go down towards the nose of the tub. This is not an easy task, but it is something, Bob Jenkins, that this team has never done before with Sam Hornish Jr. at the controls.
So round 4 will not be a fight between Team Penske and the Pennzoil Panther team because Sam is back in the paddock area with work being done on his car. Remember, he collided with Buddy Lazier a few laps ago, sending Lazier into the outside wall. That's the reason we are under caution right now. Al Unser Jr. and Sarah Fisher did not pit during this sequence of pit stops, and therefore they are at the front of the field right now. Rick Treadway in 3rd position with DeFerrin and Castro Neves running in 3rd, or rather in the 4th and 5th spot. They, of course, did make pit stops during this caution period. Al Unser Jr., who celebrated his 40th birthday yesterday, is at the front. Log on to ESPN.com, keyword ABCIRL, to check out our new Speedcast real-time race results and the IRL Challenge Fantasy game. Scott Sharp is at the back of the field now. He's being shown in 16th position. Just ahead of him is Laurent Redon, who also spun on cold tires earlier in the event, putting him back there. Field is getting realigned. The workout on the racetrack itself has been completed. The cleanup is finished. Meanwhile, Jack Arute is standing by with a driver who is sitting out today's race.
The car that Sarah Fisher is driving, the Dryan Reinbold Purek Style Special, is normally driven by this man, Robbie Buell. Robbie, first of all, medically, you now have been cleared to run in the Indianapolis 500, correct?
Yeah, no, I felt fine the last week. Just you need a little bit more time. That's why I'm not in the car here. And Sarah's done a good job for us this weekend. It's been a good opportunity for our team to kind of get a better understanding and feel for her. And, you know, we just wanted to run all day here and be around at the end. Right now, she keeps getting quicker and quicker. The car feels good. You know, we just want to be around here at the end.
And you pitted out of sequence, and you find yourself up towards the front now.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice when Dennis gets that to work for us. I'm not in the car, though, am I?
Let's check in with Gary Gerald. Gary?
Just released from the medical center. Buddy Lazier, first and foremost, are you okay? And it looked like you were a total victim.
I'm fine. I had the best race car I've had all year. I got to thank Coors Light. They gave me a great car. I just got rammed. We were biding our time. Again, best car I had all year, and somebody just ran into me from behind and launched me into the wall. So it's very disappointing. We needed a good day.
All right, we'll go back upstairs. Glad he's all right.
It's good to see that he's out walking around. Bad to see that he's out of the race. When they come around this time, it'll be Al Unser Jr., the now 40-year-old junior, who will lead them back to the green flag. And then you see George Mack. He is 5 laps behind the lead. Second place car is the third in the line, and that is Sarah Fisher, who has been coached throughout this weekend in a gracious... And there, that's Rick Treadway. That is exactly what you've been worried about, Scott Goodyear.
Well, again, a rookie, cold tires on a cold day on a very difficult racetrack. We stressed this before, and every time you get on the gas here, they got 700 horsepower ready to unleash on those back wheels. It is very, very difficult.
And they have been cautioned by IRL officials about exactly that as a potential problem.
And under restart, we can see that Ricky's already gone around on the low side of the racetrack. Everybody's missing him, and they did a great job through that. I can tell you, when something like that happens in front of you, you just go for the open hole.
And it looks like Treadway in the airline car is going to be able to get going again. If he touched the wall, it was a very, very light brush with the left rear of the car. We'll return with more of the Firestone Indy 225 after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
You're watching the Indy Racing League on ABC Sports.
Back at Nazareth, Speedway, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, the Firestone Indy 225. The last race before the running, the 86th running of the Great Indianapolis 500. The last chance for these drivers to go head-to-head with one another in competition before Indy. Green flag comes out. That's Al Unser Jr. at the lead. George Mack, 5 laps behind the race. And now here comes the Baron as he moves around Sarah Fisher. Goes into second place. Elio Castroneves will be working on Sarah in just a moment. Castroneves now lined up behind her. Giafone comes in, as does Ward. Tight battle back there behind Castroneves. Alex Barron with the new Rayovac sponsor is sticking his nose into that fight too.
And Paul, all these guys have seen all these cars spin out. They know they got to get the tire temps back up. They want a good clean restart, settle into a pace, and start to click off some laps.
Rick Treadway, who caused the last caution on the restart, they got him back into the pits. Little work on the nose got him back into action. Ward goes inside Giafone.
And a nice move, a very difficult part of the racetrack to pass going into turn 1.
So obviously that machine is working very well for the former Supercross champion. Jeff Ward now trying to move forward in the target car. Castroneves looks left, looks right, trying to find a way around the Purex car, driven by Sarah Fisher.
Now Al Jr. is leading this event. He led 39 laps at Phoenix by what we call short pitting. He did the same thing today. He's leading this event. You remember at Phoenix, he ended up finishing 5th in that event.
Thomas Schechter, who was running up in the top 5 in the early going, had a very long pit stop. Fell back to 15th place now has moved himself forward to 10th. So he's working his way up through the field with just a traffic jam in the pit.
That's it, Paul. That's exactly what happened. And the problem was the traffic jam that he had was with his boss, Eddie Cheever Jr., who drives the Red Bull team car, pitted directly in front of them. That would backed up twice, and they still couldn't get around Cheever.
Jack, that would be the same boss that Scheckter put into the wall in the first race?
I think so, yeah.
They're also, when we think about Rick Reineman getting flipped by Scott Chart's car, Jack, they're wearing mandated now helmets on all the crew.
Yeah, every crew member over the wall now in the Indy Racing League must wear an approved helmet. There are 3 Simpson models that have been approved for use. The teams can elect to use another model as well, providing that they submit it. But it certainly is made for some fascinating paint schemes and some of the support personnel, as we call them, the over-the-wall gang.
Hunter Jr. still the leader. DeFerrin trying to run him down, but he's still 7/10 back. The battle is right here, there, as we look a little further back and look at the cars who are on the move with Hunter Jr. because of that pit strategy. Hunter Jr. and Fisher and Ward up at the front, and Eddie Cheever and his young protege and partner running together. Those that are suffering trouble today, well, Buddy Lazier, he's already out of competition. Jacques Lazier, you saw his problem. Redon, Mack, they both have spun it, and Hornich in that wreck with Lazier.
As we heard, Buddy, very disappointed for getting put out. He hasn't had a very good start of this season. A couple of years ago, he had a slow start to the season, ended up winning the championship, but there's a lot of strong teams that have a lot of good points, and the finishing record is very strong. If you don't start getting points here very shortly, it's going to make a hard run at the championship.
Jeff Ward, that red Target car, sits back at 5th place right now. Felipe Giafone trying to come back up and work him. Giafone's been a little faster in the early going, but a lot of these guys are getting a long way from their last pit stop. So tires, those Firestones become a consideration because, remember, Firestone builds them for 1 fuel load. They're supposed to wear out by the end of that fuel load. That's using the tire efficiently. So these guys are running on tires in cold temperatures that are now beginning to wear down a little.
Might not see quite the wear rate that you would in optimum conditions, as Firestone calls it, with that 80-degree to 100-degree day. Tires are a little colder here. They might last a little longer. The temperature, as we've always talked about, will be the big issue. And you might even get to a point late in the race where somebody might come in just for a half fuel stop and even pass on changing the tires. We've seen that happen earlier this year.
Scott, one of the things for the leader, Al Unser Jr., is pitting out of sequence as he and Sarah Fisher did. Put them on a different pit strategy. The halfway mark, or lap 1:13 or so, will be the magic number for the Corteco crew. They do not intend to pit before then, but they sure would like to see a caution around that time.
Back on board with the Corteco car, the leader, Al Unser Jr. Remember, back in 1992 at Indy, Junior does.
I guess my favorite Indy memory is actually winning the race in 1992.
2 more laps to go. Will it be Al Unser Jr. or Scott Goodyear in the 500?
Al Unser Jr.'s won almost $1.5 million here, but he's never won the race, and he's got a lot of work to do.
Those last few laps, I mean, they were the most nerve-wracking of my life.
Al Unser Jr. has the lead. One more turn to go. Here they come. Coming to the finish line.
Believe me, I was wearing a 6-point harness on my seatbelt, and my butt was not in the seat.
The checkered flag is out. Goodyear makes a move. Little Al wins by just a few tenths of a second. Perhaps the closest finish in the history of the Indianapolis 500. Al
We're back, Nazareth, Pennsylvania, the Firestone Indy 225, the Indy Racing League. Firestone telemetry with the leader, Al Unser Jr.
You can see in telemetry the throttle position that he has, 98%. He's flat on it all the way through the front stretch and through turn 1, coming up to turn 2. The big lift comes down in turn 3, right down the bottom of this hill. 34-foot drop here from turn 2 all the way down to turn 3. High-speed section of the track, over 170 miles an hour. Big lift off the gas and back on it, and that's one fast lap here at Nazareth.
But Scott, one of the things on that Firestone telemetry that we seldom see is a negative number on lateral Gs. I thought that you only experienced a negative G when you're on like a roller coaster or the space shuttle.
Well, this track is a little bit like a roller coaster, Jack. Turn 2, you get up in the air, start to fall off that 34-foot drop down towards turn 3. I can tell you from driving here in the past that when you get to turn 2, you fall off the edge of turn 2 from the center outwards, and boy, does it feel like you're going on that roller coaster.
Pennzoil Team Panther has that car figured out. They're waving everybody out of the way and pushing it back to the track.
The engine was fired, too, as they rolled by us, and he's now on pit road. He'll hit that limit and be out there in turn 1 momentarily. Or is he going to the pit box? No, he's going to the pit box first.
46 laps behind the leader of the race as he comes out.
Gary, what they're going to do is take advantage of just checking the tires, filling up with fuel before they send the car out. And what would have happened in the back in the pits? They would have taken the suspension pieces that you see right here that he bent, and they have some set up already on the inside of the trailer, right to measurement, where they can bolt them on the car and also install a new wing, which he knocked off during that indication with Buddy Lazier.
On the right rear, that's Kevin Blanche. They call him Rocket. Now, those 2 of them do not have helmets. 3 of them now. Helmets are mandatory for the first time this weekend, and in their rush to get the car back out, they took their helmets off in the paddock, which they can, but not in the pit. So we'll see how that's dealt with. You got to give them some flexibility there because they're rushing to try to get that car back in on a brand new rule.
Well, I remember when I worked for Darrell Waltrip in a NASCAR race at Dover, Delaware, and they had the same situation happen with Darrell Waltrip at the controls early in the race. They were 47 laps down. The NASCAR officials came to the drivers and said, Junior Johnson, we're going to penalize you a lap. You had too many men over the wall. And Junior Spohn says, go ahead, penalize us too.
Casper Nevis moves on Fisher. Fisher gets way high, out of the line, and slows.
In that situation, Paul, look out. She is...
Sarah Fisher, and there's a touch with her.
Yeah, she is off the pace. She needs to be in. She's got some car problems.
And that brings the yellow flag out.
Yellow's over here. Yellow's over here. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.
Well, that was strange. Cars going across the track now. Another car apparently got the wall. And that's John Herb. They had just gotten around Herb. Whoa.
That's his
right, that baby wing. Nose high.
That's a little nose high. His front wing is stuck underneath the car. That's something that you generally don't see very often.
Yeah, but, you know, put your memory back to, as we're going to look at the replay, remember Johnny Rutherford when he ran over his own wheel and flipped upside down at Phoenix while winning the championship?
And on that replay, we saw him get to the center of the turn and the car heading directly to the wall. Something happened before he got to the center of the turn, either a loss of steering.
Obviously, John Herb is all right. He climbs out of the car. This is Al Unser Jr.'s view. Herb's up into the wall. Now, here was Sarah.
Now, here's the cars coming in. They're going to the same place of the turn. You can see right here that the one car is actually up on the curbing right now already, and he's got nowhere else to go. And Sarah's going to come in and push him to the inside over the curbing. The 2 cars touch and rub.
That was Anthony Lazzaro down to the inside, who won here in the Toyota Atlantics. And he was trying to give her all the room he could. So the yellow is out again. 92 laps are complete. Al Unser Jr. remains in the lead, and this may be exactly what his strategy was looking for, because he's in an ideal position to stop under the yellow and continue a top position. He circles now behind the Chevrolet Corvette pace car.
And we talked at the beginning of the show that maybe the fastest car may not win. Al's looked for speed all weekend, and he said that if he can actually come out of sequence and find himself some good pit strategy, it might help him, and it certainly has done that now.
Well, they've played it perfectly for Al Unser Jr. We'll see if he can hold on to it, though, because there's still a very long way to go. Up next, Ricky Carmichael and the gang from EA Supercross at Texas Stadium. The EA Sports Supercross next on ABC. All right, so Junior, we assume as soon as they open the pits.
What you got to do on the front wing. Increase both sides, 1 turn, half a degree of front flap. And 4. Sharp is not pitting, so you got 1 box open, easy in behind. Fisher will be stopping in front of us, so the boys will stage you back as much as we can.
And they're using the pit access road to circle Al Unser Jr. around because of the accident sitting down on the course. That gives the safety workers plenty of room to work.
Okay, Al, I've got a guy right next to me. He's going to let me know exactly why they're open.
And we're wondering what Al's wondering. How long before they have the field together and they're going to bring Al Unser Jr. and anyone else, though logically Sarah Fisher is the only other one. Maybe Laurent Redon will be in the pits, but anybody else that comes into the pits when they open them, then it's going to be an interesting strategy.
Well, don't forget the weather. Penske, both cars are coming in, or at least they're laid out over the wall for both Castroneves and DeFerrin. Pits are now open.
Well, and as you look up and down the pits, and the weather would be the factor here, it seems like almost everybody was laid out. Al Unser Jr. will bring the field in. 94 complete. 113 would be a completed race should it start to rain and they be faced with that as an issue.
That would be on drivers' minds and the team managers' minds and the engineers' minds.
The spotters are right in front of the broadcast booth here, and many of them had the number for the local FAA weather office, so they could call there as well.
Now the key is not for Al Unser Jr. to get around, and he does. Clear, the first one away. Little Al,
then Little Al, then DeFerrin, then Alex Barron, then Jeff Ward. With Team Penske service rolls out ahead of Al Unser Jr. Most of the field in, except, of course, for Scott Sharp. You heard the conversation with Al Unser Jr. from the team that they were going to keep Scott Sharp out. We'll be back with more from Nazareth.
This Wide World of Sports update brought to you by ExxonMobil and Speed Pass. Today's way to pay. Here now, Bob Jenkins.
98 laps out of 225 completed here at Nazareth, and we're under caution because of an incident involving John Herb. We are looking very much forward once again to being at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this year for coverage of the Indy 500, and there could be a major safety innovation in place by the time we get there. There could be soft walls on the outside of all 4 turns at the Speedway before the track opens for practice on May the 5th. Extensive testing has been conducted at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and if the data is good from the last test last Friday, that 4,400 feet of material will be placed on the outside of the 4 turns at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for this year's 500. And speaking of the 500, rookie orientation was conducted. And Thomas Schechter was the fastest of the 6 drivers who participated with a lap over 226 miles an hour. And several entries filed for the race include non-IRL regulars, and they include 2 former winners, Kenny Breck and 2-time winner Ari Lyondike. The Indianapolis 500 live coverage at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, May 26th. Gary?
Bob, we had reports of raindrops on the racetrack. But look, these aren't raindrops. These are little particles of ice that are bouncing down here. And it's strange. I mean, I guess this is Nazareth rain when you got 50 degrees, but coming down from somewhere, these are ice particles. Weird stuff going on here, Jack.
Well, Gary, one of the reasons when Tom Kelly, who was a pilot himself, saw those ice particles, that hailstones, he said, what's next? A swarm of locusts? They decided to stay out purposefully because they knew the rain was coming. They do feel, however, that they're going to have to make one more stop like everybody else. Said now is as good a time as ever to exercise the opportunity to gain track position. The animated radio conversations back and forth during this caution between Scott Sharp and his crew, though, have been very, very much about let it rain, let it rain, let it rain.
We also heard some comments about how they should pick up the pace of the pace cars so more laps can be completed under caution. We are 12 away from the halfway point, and again, some very interesting strategy here, Scott, because Scott Sharp is at the front of the field and the weather isn't looking very good.
Absolutely, some great pit work and strategy from Team Kelly. We're going to try and get Scott Sharp with us right now. Scott Sharp, Scott Goodyear in the booth. Do you hear us?
More, Scott.
Some great pit strategy by the Kelly team. Can you tell us if that was planned and this rain that's coming on? Was that in the forecast? Did you think about that?
Not to ask Tom Kelly that. He's calling the race for us. But basically, we got put to the back of the line because one of the Penske crew guys that gets backed up as I was coming in, and I nailed him a little bit. And so they gave us a penalty for that. And really, you know, it's, as I talked about earlier, track position's everything here. So we needed to get ourselves up a ways. The crew, you know, the guys, Tom and the guys decided to keep me out. Felt like I've been giving me some great stops. So hopefully a few more laps, this rain will really start coming down.
Well, you've got the best seat in the house right now looking to the back of that Corvette pace car, so good luck.
Thanks, Scott.
That N opposite of Scott Sharp's name indicates that he did not pit during this caution period. Castroneves, however, has pitted and picked up one position a second. Jack?
All right, Tom Kelly, your driver, you heard him, said we got to ask you about the strategy.
Well, Jack, first of all, we wanted to get him to the front of the pack because track position's everything, and we've only got to make one more stop, as does everybody else, and it may rain. So if any one of those things happens in our favor, we could win this thing.
Now, you work with a lot of people from Bombardier Aerospace. Did you have anybody up in an airplane checking this out?
No, but we know where the Weather Channel's on the TV, so we'll see what happens.
What channel is it on here?
It's on the Weather Channel, Jack, 362, DSS. Wow.
10 laps until the official race, and Gary Gerald is also down on pit road trying to keep this rain away.
Well, we're down here in the back area. It's a tech area where you can see the damaged race car of John Erb. John has been released from the medical center a moment ago. Obviously, you appear to be okay. Your race car has been hurt big time. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, we had a little issue with the handling. It was going away. We were getting a little loose in the middle. So I reached down and made a bar adjustment, double-checked it on the back straightaway. I slowed the car down a little bit, and I was getting caught by Hattori there. Shigeaki made a move on the inside. I got up high in the marbles, and I couldn't turn it.
Well, I'm glad you're all right, but boy, there's a lot of work to be done here, Russ.
Absolutely.
Gonna be okay for Indianapolis?
Yeah, I just feel bad for the guys. They worked real hard this weekend, and we got some other cars coming for Indy, so we should be ready to go.
Wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Major League Baseball Sunday night, it features the Anaheim Angels against the Oakland Athletics. You can see that at 8 o'clock tonight on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Still under caution here at Nazareth Speedway because of the accident and because of the rain that continues to fall very, very lightly. This is the fourth stop of the schedule. Indianapolis is next, then a night race at Texas Motor Speedway, followed by Pikes Peak and Richmond. And then in the second half of the season, another night race in Nashville, Tennessee. The first stop at Michigan Speedway in Brooklyn on July the 28th. And the season winds up once again back at Texas Speedway on September the 15th. The finale once again, and that will be on ABC Sports. 105 laps completed here at Nazareth. The Firestone Indy 225 under the caution. You can see the marks on the wall there from various accidents that have occurred here this afternoon. Scott Sharp looks forward to going back to the Indianapolis 500. Here's his memory.
My Indy 500 memory would have to be qualifying on the pole for last year's race.
And he's on it. Eyes on the run by Scott Sharp.
It's just such an awesome 4 laps we were able to put together.
And it's even faster. Scott Sharp going for the pole, trying to 7 mark. Nobody can move around.
Just there's so much emotion goes into that day.
Ranked number 1. He's on the pole.
To be able to come out on top is pretty special.
You're watching the Indy Racing League on ABC Sports.
Coming up on the completion of lap number 110 here at Nazareth Speedway. And again, an official race will be 113. The past few laps have been run under caution because of this light rain that continues to fall. It isn't a heavy rain by any means, and I don't think the track is wet to the point where they'd have to spend extensive time drying it. Right now, the raindrops continue to fall. Been an interesting race because pit strategy has put Scott Sharp up at the front of the field. And perhaps the biggest story of all is the fact that Sam Hornish Jr. is running 22nd right now, having been involved in an incident with Buddy Lazier early in the race. Since he joined Team Panther, Sam Hornish's worst finish was last year at Indianapolis. Other than that, his worst finish has been 6th. So this will possibly be the worst race since Sam Hornish joined Team Panther. So the rain continues to fall, and Scott Sharp could very well end up as the winner of this race. Remember, he won not too long ago at Texas Motor Speedway. And the Texas race fans, they are on their feet and loving it.
Greg and I got so close a couple times. I was just waiting for the hit, and amazing we didn't.
Now Cheever goes, whoa, oh, they're going to go 3 wide.
You can't drive like that. I mean, I'd get underneath them and they just chop you off. Sharp moved me 3 lanes up in the way into the gray. I had no place to go. I had 2 choices, hit the wall or go high.
It was wild, I tell you.
Look at this, 3 abreast. Yes, it did. And Greg Ray takes the lead, and Cheever had to get out of the throttle once again. That was Scott Sharp's victory last June at Texas Motor Speedway. We look forward to going there again in a little over a month and a half. Well, here's the race recap. Scott Sharp is the leader after 112 circuits. The green race average is almost 156 miles an hour. Al Unser Jr. has led the most laps, 54. Gilles de Ferran has led 41, and Scott Sharp, the current leader, has been up front 17 laps. John Hurd crashed, so did Buddy Lazier, and those 2 cars are the only ones out of competition right now. We've had some other spins, but those are the only 2 cars out of competition. That is an official race right there. We will not come back tomorrow. The question is, will we be able to go green? And race control is telling us yes, that if we don't get any more sprinkles here in the next couple of laps, we will be going back to the green flag. In fact, in a lap and a half, we will be going back to green flag conditions. That's Elio Castro-Neves lined up right behind Scott Sharp. Al Unser Jr. has come out of the pits to show himself in 3rd position right now. De Ferran is 4th. Alex Barron giving that car a good ride here this afternoon. And Jeff Ward for Team Ganassi is in the 6th position right now. They come down and they are being given the 1 lap to go signal. So that's good news. Hopefully this rain will go away and stay away for the next hour or so, and we can get this race in its complete distance, 225 laps. Shigeaki Hattori is being shown in 7th position, then Lazaro, Jacques Lazier, and Eddie Cheever completing the top 10. The cars now getting set to come back to green flag racing. The pace car is off the track, and will they get the green? No, the caution is staying out. The caution is staying out, so we will not go back up to race speed, at least at the moment. From where I am, and perhaps the guys down on pit road have a better idea, but I don't see any rain coming down at the moment, so I don't think that was the cause for the staying caution. Hopefully we will have a green here in just a moment. And the word is that Scott Sharp jumped the start. This time he does not, however. The green comes out and we're back to racing in Nazareth, Paul. And Team Kelly has definitely joined the championship with Scott Sharp in the lead. Penske cars now fighting for 2nd place as de Ferran came around Unser Jr. And they've separated a considerable distance from 4th, 5th, and 6th on back. That's Alex Barron that now sits in 4th place. That's the white car just coming into your screen, the 44 car of Alex Barron. Though the skies are lightning, what everybody knows, especially this man, Scott Sharp, the leader, is that what they just had in terms of moisture in the area could certainly happen again.
Scott Sharp is leading this race. As you know, he did not pit last time. They had a yellow. He's going to have to come in somewhere about 28 or 30 laps from now and he'll certainly be hoping for some form of a yellow to slow the race pace down, so when he gets his service work, he's not going to lose too much time on the racetrack.
2 on fuel, please. You heard them tell Scott Sharp that he is pulling away and doing so steadily from second place. Elio Castroneves now with an 0.8 of a second lead.
Paul, this is a team that had more than its share of problems during the warm-ups, practice, and everything leading up to this race. Scott Sharp's crew was draining fuel out of their car when a flash fire occurred, and a couple of their crew members, including Robert Perez, suffered some second and third degree burns on their hands. Thankfully, it was none of the crew members that go over the wall. Everybody is okay, but sometimes out of bad fortune, good fortune turns itself around. Seems to be the case thus far for Sharp.
Allenser Jr. has dropped back to 7th place. You see him there. And behind him, there is a large group all battling for position. Hunter Jr., Anthony Lazzaro, Eddie Cheever Jr., Jacques Lazier, who contact with Thomas Scheckter. Yellow comes out. Wow. It got so crowded back there. Scott Goodyear, as you said, it gets so very busy here. But again, in Jacques Lazier, we're talking a veteran. But he's gotten together with a guy who said this track is tricky and is brand new to the track, Thomas Scheckter.
Certainly looked like Scheckter was trying to get underneath Lazier going into 3. We talked about before, turn 3 is the best place to pass. It's the only part of the racetrack where you've been traveling down the straightaway for a period of time where you can actually set somebody up, get a little bit of a draft, and get underneath them going into turn 3. Now, Thomas looked like he was on his way past Lazier, didn't get the job done. Both guys wanted to get right to the middle of the track at the same time, and they both touched and collided, and this is the end result. Watch here, Thomas going on the inside, already on the curbing, comes on the underneath side of Lazier. They touch and off they go. Both Lazier brothers have not had a very good luck here today, I'll tell you. Now watch this, Scheckter on the inside, trying to take advantage of a little bit of traffic, trying to get underneath Lazier. Both of them don't have enough room. Lazier running a little bit of a higher line, trying to come down and do a later apex. Now watch as they come towards the turn. You'll see the 2 lines that they're headed for. Looks like Schecter's already about ready to make his pass. Lazier is running a wider line, about ready to pick up the apex right down here in this section. And as we continue along, you'll see that he's going to push himself up onto the curbs, has no room to move. His right front touches the left rear of Lazier, and off they go.
I'll take a look at on-board shot. Boy, that's heavy damage on both of those cars. That's going to be expensive.
Heavy damage, Paul, especially since Indianapolis is coming up here very shortly. 2 well-financed teams, though, that do have spare cars sitting back there in the shop ready to get ready for the testing starting here in a couple of weeks. We're on board with Jacques Lazier. You can see that he was just driving along. You did not see Schecter's car come into frame, so Lazier probably didn't see him. Schecter's trying to get underneath him, trying to get a run towards turn 3. Scheckter is probably at fault in that situation. Probably should have just waited another lap to set up Lazier going down the backstretch.
And safety team spending a little extra time at Thomas Schecter's car. And we'll keep track of that, of course, for you and report as soon as we have some information. Let's also point out that for Eddie Cheever, the owner of that car right there, it's been a very expensive year. He's had 1 heavy hit, and for Thomas Scheckter, it's his 3rd DNF in 4 races this year. Jack Arute, what are they saying in the pits?
Well, Paul, earlier in the drivers' meeting, Brian Barnhart sat down every single driver in this field and went over that specific scenario, the one that we just saw unfold between Thomas Scheckter, the rookie, and Jacques Lazier. And he explained it thusly. He said, guys, if you are side by side, the man on the outside has the advantage. The man on the inside must back out. He actually talked them through what would happen, Scott Goodyear, even though you are side by side going into the corner, because of the apexing of these corners and how difficult it is. A very costly rookie mistake by Thomas Scheckter, but you must hold harmless Jacques Lazier.
A very tight track, as we talked about. Scheckter obviously trying to move up with his teammate. You saw Eddie just in front of him. But certainly he's trying to come back from where he was, running around 8th or 9th. trying to move forward in the pack, getting ready for the next pit stop.
Pits will open next time by behind the Chevrolet Corvette pace car.
We're going to pit. We're going to try to go the distance to win the race. Go ahead and pit.
And that's what I was
Pits are open, coming in right now.
Scott Sharp will be in. It's been 85 laps since his last stop. It looked to me, though, when I was watching the replay with Scott there, that Thomas Scheckter got in there so quick, and Lazier came across that Scheckter didn't really know what to do about how to get back out of that situation.
We were watching that just a few laps before. It looked like Scheckter had a bit more speed, a little bit more momentum.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right here.
Now let's watch this pit stop.
Hold your brake, hold it, 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 hold it. Hold it, brake, hold your brake. Tire's done. Hold it, hold it.
And you heard, fellas, as he was called in, Tom Kelly said, let's try to go to the distance now, make no more pit stops, and most importantly, win the race.
And we're waiting for word from medical because both Jacques Lazier and Thomas Scheckter still in the cars, safety team working with both of them. So Elio Castroneves, with that stop by Scott Sharp, picks up the lead of the race under yellow. So it'll be a little while before we get back to green flag racing at Nazareth.
Wide World of Sports update brought to you by ExxonMobil and Speed Pass. Today's way to pay. Here now, Bob Jenkins.
136 laps complete under caution because of an incident involving Thomas Scheckter and Jacques Lazier. Both are out of their cars. They were placed on stretchers, taken to an ambulance. We'll hopefully have an update on them in a few minutes. Let's give you more medical updates now. We heard from Robbie Buell a little bit earlier in the telecast. He is setting out this race. Sarah Fisher is substituting for him. Robbie voluntarily passed up the race because he says he wants to be 100% for the Indianapolis 500. Eliseo Salazar is also not here this weekend. Richie Hearn substituting for him. Eliseo was involved in a crash at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway testing last week. Now, he sustained an injury that required some surgery. They had to break the sternum and do some heart surgery to repair a situation, and so he is out for, doctors say, 6 months. Eliseo says he hopes to be back racing by the end of the year. And all of us are hoping for a speedy recovery for NASCAR Winston Cup car owner Jack Roush, who was involved in a private plane crash a couple of days ago in Alabama. The last report was that he is responding to doctors' commands. It's a big open-wheel weekend here in Nazareth. USAC races were held earlier today. The USAC Midget Series saw Michael Lewis take the lead from Dave Darlin on lap 15 and go on to win that 25-lapper. And then the USAC Sprint Car Series competed, and Tracy Hines led all 25 laps, beating A.J. Fike and Jay Drake. Back with more in just a moment from Nazareth Speedway. Elio Castroneves leads Jill DeFerrin.
The Firestone Indy 225 on ABC Sports, brought to you by Firestone, America's tire since 1900. John Deere, nothing runs like a deer. Castrol GTX. And Yamaha, makers of fine motorcycles and ATVs. Nobody's more in tune with motorsports than Yamaha.
And the cleanup continuing from the crash involving Jacques Lazier and Thomas Scheckter. We hopefully will be going back to green in just a moment. Both drivers, when placed on the stretcher, by the way, did wave to the crowd, so hopefully their injuries are not serious. But it has been a very action-packed race here this afternoon, from crashes and from a little bit of moisture that has been falling from the skies. But right now the skies are cloudy, but not too bad, and we hope the rain will hold off. So let's go back and take a look at what has happened in the first few laps of this race. It all started out on lap number 38 when two of the IRL's best, Sam Hornish and Buddy Lazier, touched wheels, and that sent Lazier hard into the outside wall. Hornish was spending 48 laps in the pits, and Hornish is now running in 22nd position. Then, on lap 54, Rick Redway coming to the green spins. Lap number 90, Sarah Fisher touches wheels with Anthony Lazzaro. And John Herb on the same lap also has contact with the outside wall. Then, most recently on lap number 122, it was Jacques Lazier and Thomas Schechter. At the end of the backstretch, they touch wheels also both hard into the outside wall. And again, we are awaiting an update on the medical condition of both drivers. They were placed on stretchers and will be checked over at the infield medical facility. So that is the situation as it stands, down to Gary Jerry.
In the Penske pits with Tim Cindric, the president, who is on the radio with Helio Castroneves. What's the strategy? How do you play it here with weather concerns and still just under 100 laps to go?
Yeah, at this point in time, obviously, you're watching the weather all the time, and you're sitting there thinking you've got one more stop to go to the end. There's 3 or 4 guys that came in before us. Hopefully, if it comes to that and they make it to the end, we're strong enough to pass them on the racetrack.
What's the biggest concern, Tim?
Just a matter of when to come in and get our last stop done and what the weather's going to do.
Okay, they keep an eye on the sky. Let's go to Jack.
Well, Gary, Alex Barron is having a whale of a ride for Larry Blair and his new sponsor, Rayovac Batteries. Tom Gloy calls the shots here. When you talk to Alex, who has run at Nazareth before, Tom, did you guys come up with a conservative strategy to race here?
No, it's not really conservative. It's just that Alex has a lot of knowledge. John Dick, our engineer, has a tremendous amount of knowledge. So we're really running very, very hard. We've been really good in traffic, even though it's difficult to pass here. So it's a great weekend for Blair Racing and for Rayovac Batteries.
Now, the most important thing, though, is you do have to make one more stop. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's only one guy that doesn't have to make another stop, and that's Scott Sharp. So we need to make sure we don't have so many yellows.
Tell you the kind of comedian, Bob, that this guy is. I says, when are you going to stop next? He says, oh, Tuesday.
A veteran of various types of motorsports. Glad to have him in the IRL. There is Helio Castroneves, who is leading this race. And again, at the beginning of the program, we set up the tail of the tape, the battle between Team Penske and Pennzoil Panther and Sam Hornish. However, Hornish, because of the accident, is not involved in today's battle. In the 2002 IRL season, Team Penske with 1 win, Sam Hornish with 2, but it's very close.
Back at Nazareth, Pennsylvania, the Firestone Indy 225 getting ready to come back to the green flag. Castroneves will lead him back, his teammate at Marlboro Team Penske, Jill DeFerrin in 2nd place. Great story with Alex Barron coming back. You see him there, the white car, in 3rd place when they come back for the green flag. Interesting development, though, Scott Goodyear. Felipe Giafoni, driving for Morris Nunn, came in and stopped just about 5 laps ago. That should carry him all the way to the end, and even though it put him back in the field, down to 13th position, he is certainly capable of racing with the leaders. He's proven that today.
He's proven that today. He has been running strong. He pitted at this yellow opportunity when the race pace is slow, probably going underneath the same strategy they have for Scott Sharp's car, and that's to bring him in and hopefully only have one more stop. And they had their stops, so they're basically leader with no stops for the remainder of the race, much like Scott Sharp is now. And Penske, a lot of the guys up front, probably are still looking at one more stop.
You've got a couple of different strategies at play here. From Castroneves back to 9th place Ayrton Dare, all of those cars have about 20-25 laps before they have to stop. And then comes a group that's led by Scott Sharp that probably has as many as 58-59 laps before he has to stop. And then, of course, Felipe Giafoni. Green flag comes out. Back racing at Nazareth. Barron and Ward both close in. Jeff Ward looks a little high on Alex Barron. Now darts to the inside. Battle for 3rd.
A great run off of turn 2. Slips on the inside of Barron on turn 3. Barron tries him again down the front. Just a case of momentum.
Now Ward looking for Jill DeFerrin, 2nd place, half a second ahead. There's the leader, Helio Castroneves. But remember, what's happening here and now is extraordinarily dependent on pit strategy to the end of the race. There are cars like Giafoni Jeff Ward's car. Yellow comes out. They're a little bit worried about oil on the track. Wow, after that great move.
Well, they always say the engines run best just before they blow up, and boy, he certainly looked like he was going to be a threat.
Here comes Jeff Ward, the engine already gone there. Alex Barron, boy, he's in a world of hurt trying to figure out where he's going to go. And thankfully, he didn't get into any oil that may have come back from that engine.
Two things happen with that, Paul. Number one is vision. The smoke's coming up in front of you. You're trying to find your place on the racetrack. And when you see that, you know the engine is gone, and you certainly hope that no fluid is on the racetrack, which will make you slide off into the wall.
Well, and speaking of Jeff Ward, who climbs out, still staying in the car. Remember, he's a great Supercross champion, and if you love Supercross, watch the gang, including Ricky Carmichael, who's just been awesome this year, because it's Supercross coming up next on ABC Sports from Texas Stadium. EA Sports, Supercross next here on ABC. So now, how will the strategy play? Jeff Ward climbs out of the car. Down in Alex Barron's pit, they're thinking, let's bring this car in. Only 55 laps since his last stop, but this, of course, would give him a run to the finish.
But, Paul, in this scenario, what Alex Barron and his team, the Rayovac team, have decided is it's going to be monkey see, monkey do. If the leaders stay out, if Marlboro Team Penske stays out, Tom Gloy has instructed Alex Barron to stay out likewise.
Well, if you look down the pit road, the Penske team does have a couple of guys over the wall, and they kick the tires back in. They're not going to go. Hornish is on the pit road, though. Now, remember, Hornish, running well back at 21st, is also 49 laps behind the leader. Almost makes you wonder why they run the car. The points position, now they don't for a second there, then they got it going.
Feel when you get a chance, Sam.
80 points will certainly help at the end of the year. If they can pick up a couple here, they're really in jeopardy of doing that, but 80 points will help in the championship fight, that is for sure.
Paul, I think the one thing that we've all got to start to look at is what is the magic number for the first three cars in terms of when they must pit. What we are hearing mumbled around down here is about lap 170 to 175 or so. That's an optimum situation. Let's check in with Harry.
Coming to a stop, the Corteco car, number 7, Al Unser Jr. He led early. They're having problems getting the fueling nozzle engaged. Now, finally, it locks in. But that cost them about 4, maybe 5 seconds. It's a short fill, and he's out. I'm not sure they got very much fuel in there, guys.
Well, they would have to get a fairly tall load in that car if they want to go to the finish. So tires must be their issue. Green flag. Because he did not come in, Alex Barron remains in third place behind Gilda Barron and the leader, Elio Castroneves. Eddie Cheever Jr. in the Red Bull car comes up now to challenge Barron. He looks to the inside, decides no, and loses a little momentum doing that. Now he comes back at him. That's Anthony Lazzaro behind Cheever, and then Billy Boat. Cheever looks again at Barron, not close enough to make the move. One of Eddie Cheever Jr.'s strongest supporters, Tom Walkinshaw, is over from his Formula One efforts, visiting the team. In fact, he and Teddy Mayer, a long-time worker with Team Penske, and of course, remembering his birthdays in Formula One. It was really great to hear Walkinshaw and Mayer talking about the old days of Formula One together. Stories that generally cannot be repeated.
Watching these 4 cars at the front right now, looks like Cheever has a little bit more speed than Barron. Thought better up trying to get down the inside of him on turn 3, much like we saw the crash with his teammate just a few laps ago.
But the Southern Californian Alex Barron is holding his own. This has been a wonderful opportunity for him driving for Larry Blair this year. Now picking up the new sponsor in Rayovac. He's one of those drivers that for a number of years you said, opportunity.
Doing outstanding job. And if you look now, we're starting to catch up to the two cars in front, Castroneves and DeFerrin. Maybe in a couple of laps, we might have an opportunity to start working on DeFerrin himself.
The front four running close together. There they are, all on the back strut. Al Unser Jr. now in danger of going a lap down because of his stop. Late stop under the yellow. Just got a glimpse of him. There's a pretty good separation now from the front four back to pit.
He's still there, right behind you. Right behind you.
Al Unser Jr. just ahead of the leader, Elio Castroneves. Cheever looks at Barron.
Still there, he's still there. Right behind you now.
Well, now, 3 would have been Castroneves' best turn to try to make a move on Unser Jr., and he didn't take the opportunity. DeFerrin's now taking the opportunity to close from second.
DeFerrin, a very smart race car driver. Very quiet, very thoughtful, very methodical. Probably sitting back here waiting for Castroneves to get close to traffic. If he can take the opportunity to get him in traffic, I'm sure he'll do that.
Barron right there at the back of DeFerrin. Castroneves, when DeFerrin and Castroneves joined the Penske team, started referring to DeFerrin as the professor because of his vast knowledge and all the help that he has been to Elio Castroneves. There comes Anthony Lazzaro, 5th place. He's now beginning to run that front-running group down. And there's Billy Boat as well behind Lazzaro.
And Paul, Anthony Lazzaro has a new status, a new tactician calling the shots here this weekend. His regular engineer was called back home due to an illness, and it was only Sam Schmidt who was making all the calls. Sam joked about the opportunity and said, either I'm going to have to give a hefty raise to my engineer at the end of this race, or maybe I'll be able to save quite a bit of money. I wasn't quite sure where he was headed with that one.
DeFerrin moves up. On Castroneves, left, right. Trying to carry that momentum off the corner.
Keep in mind that all 4 of these cars in the front, they still must pit one more time.
Repeat that, I didn't quite hear you. Got me on.
Jackaroo, when you're driving, who's your tactician? Your dad do that for you?
Yeah, now and again, it's more like, well, you did a good job, but
reminding us that our announcer is really Jackie Arute, and Jack Arute Sr. is the true Jack.
Now what's happening here at the front, guys, is that Al Unser Jr. is getting the blue flag. That flag means move over for the cars behind. But Al Jr., I can assure you, is pedaling that car as fast as he can because he does not want to go down a lap. But he's about to right now.
Elio Castroneves gets past. The flag is kind of an insistent advisory. Now the Barron almost gets caught up there. You mentioned that before. You got to be so careful if you're the second car in the pass. That gave Lazzaro a chance to close down on Cheever. And now Boat's going to try to work Lazzaro. Whoa, whoa, whoa! He puts Starry very high. Starry saves it.
And that was a great save. He could get off the gas and spun that thing around, but he just did a nice job.
The 34 car, the MyJack car, is Laurent Raidon. He's not in this battle. He's down behind the leaders, currently running in 15th, 4 laps behind the lead. There comes Sarah. Sarah trying to make a move. Now Cheever trying to work on Al Unser Jr.
Art and Darray, when something like that happens, you got to clear your head, get back on the gas, and get your pace back.
Sarah Fisher, despite that problem that she had just before John Herb's yellow, has stayed on the lead lap. Currently sits in 9th.
We just saw a moment ago, Al Unser Jr. in front with Eddie Cheever behind. Eddie Cheever shaking his fist to Al Unser Jr., trying to get some notice to him in the mirrors. also put him down a lap so he can get back up and catch up with the leaders.
And you can see anytime he gets a little straight area, Al's looking over to the left mirror. I think he's just trying to figure out where can I place the car.
Cheever with that infinity power, a good run going down here to 3. Will he make it on the inside?
No.
Very close. You got to get a good strong run off of turn 2. You heard there on the radio, the spotter for Alger Jr.'s car telling him, let Cheever go.
No way.
And there's Al's response, no way.
Yellow comes out, brushed with the wall. A lot of parts, and it tells us it's off of the 31 car, and that's George Mack. Remember, he's spun.
You're all right, George.
Yep, he's
I
all
don't know
right.
why in the hell Sam tried to pass him. He's only, what, 30 laps down?
George Mack got in trouble on the front stretch earlier in the race, spun it, didn't touch anything, was able to get back in the fight. And this time he puts the car up against the wall and brings out the caution. You heard his crew ask him if he's okay, said wave. If he is, he waves, so he evaluates himself as all right, but that bunches the front runners up again, and what will it do for stops? My best guess is that now Castroneves, DeFerrin, Barron, Cheever, and Lazaro, and Boat all will hit the pits.
We heard him actually having some conversation with his team, talking something about Sam, an altercation.
Well, that's not a great sign. We're still waiting for official word from medical, but that's the medical helicopter warming up. Remember, we have both Jacques Lazier and Thomas Schechter. Gary Gerald, what's their status with the hospital?
Oh, here the helicopter is lifting off, going right up over our head at this moment. Both of the drivers, Jacques Lanier and Thomas Schechter, are awake and alert. They're responding beautifully, we are told, by Dr. Henry Bach through his spokesperson here at the medical center. They are taking him to a local hospital for further x-ray and examination, but again, both alert and responsive. Very encouraging news. And both men, again, are going to the local hospital, both being transported.
So the Red Bull sign is out for Eddie Cheever as the pits come open, and we expect at least the top 6 all to hit the pit road.
Playing into everybody's hands, another yellow, a track like this. Everybody up and down pit road was expecting something to come out and cause a yellow. They don't like to see cars crash or drivers injured, but I can assure you that all the teams up and down there are betting on another yellow so they can pit underneath a slow condition.
So Jill DeFerrin stays out. I assume because they're both 82 laps from their last stop that that's just an effort by Penske to make a clear run in and out for both their drivers.
Absolutely. We saw that Castroneves' left front tire guy ended up picking up the tire to allow, to allow Castroneves to come into the pit, and DeFerrin's left front tire guy picked up that tire to allow him to get in and have a clean shot going into the pit lane. On the next time around, I'm sure that you'll actually see DeFerrin come in and make his pit stop the next time through.
Alex Barron stopped. Anthony Lazaro stopped. Billy Boat stopped.
3. 10-4, just make fuel here, make fuel. Stay out, stay out.
So Penske's going to keep him out.
I'm coming now.
Well, that's interesting. 83 laps since DeFerrin stopped. That's a long, long way. In any engine's book.
Absolutely. I'm sure they've just split the pit stops up to allow the guys to get in separately, to not have any altercation in the pits. But the captain's got different strategies before. A lot of times they work, so we might learn something here.
He gets to the end of the yellow. If he holds him out a long time, then he gives them a little longer run in whatever tires he puts
Yeah, it's definitely raining. It's starting to rain more and more.
When he comes in, by the way, this will give the lead over to Sharp, followed by Sarah Fisher and Felipe Giafone in third place. Here is that situation with George Mack.
As you can see, as they're running through there, he probably looked in the mirror and saw Sam Hornish coming up through. Looked like he was trying to give him a little bit of space to let him go underneath him, and probably gave him too much room because he was well off the black area where you want to run in the groove, and he was actually up into the gray area.
Firestone tires that they're using here this weekend are the same that they used at Phoenix. Pretty hard compound, but you can still see some marbling now beginning to develop just off the line.
As we go through here, watch to see what's happening. Sam Hornish's car is right down here in the groove. George Mack is up here. This gray area here is just about the maximum where you want to be as you start to go through the turn. As we start to run, you'll see that George Mack is up into the gray. The front starts to push, and the car is going to get up here into what we call the marbles and end up just getting a sliding car going up into the wall, almost like quick stand. It will just suck you up into the wall, and he has no control of the car right now, and it will just go up there and graze the wall. He was trying to be polite, trying to help Sam Hornish, but he paid the price.
Paul, we've got a quick update from the pit area. Maybe the reason Roger Penske is keeping DeFerrin out is because it is now sprinkling hard. It's not the little ice pellets that we saw before, although there are a handful of those. But maybe he's just gambling that maybe this race is close to a point where they may not be able to continue if it gets a lot more wet.
Well, Gary, if that's true, it's quite a gamble, because you would think that that car is beginning to go very, very dry. Because of the rain, IRL control said we're going to keep it under yellow a little bit. And we're about to find out how far the Penske Chevrolet engine is going to be able to go.
Well, that's a very good point. One of the things that a lot of the teams and engine builders, specifically the Chevrolet engine builders, have been telling me is that under caution and in that configuration, they are able to conserve so much fuel. There was some talk that if there was enough cautions here at Nazareth, that they could go as much as 100 laps between pit stops.
86 laps since DeFerrin last stopped. He could potentially go 100. Sarah Fisher will take over second, assuming a stop by Jill DeFerrin. That's Infinity Power. Subbing for Robbie Buell. So still under caution at Nazareth.
Firestone Indy 225 on ABC Sports. Brought to you by Firestone, America's tire since 1900. Rocky Mountain Cold Coors Light. Cold, down, easy. And Speed Pass at Exxon and Mobil.
185 laps completed. It is raining here at Nazareth. Will they red flag the race soon? Well, we're just going to have to wait to find out, but certainly Roger Penske might hope that, because one of his drivers is up front, Gary.
Yes, in the pits, you can see the raindrops bouncing off the Hugo Boss outerwear. Roger, how long can you gamble here, hoping that this race ends? I assume that's what you're hoping for.
Well, I think that, we can run quite a bit longer, and obviously with the yellows we've had and with the weather like this, there was, really wasn't a chance to come in or don't come in, but we'll just have to wait and see. I think the longer this weather is, doubtful will give us play into our hands.
Can you lobby hard, or is that totally out of your hands?
I don't think I can lobby over here.
Remember the man whose headquarters is just about 35 miles away in Reading, Pennsylvania. He's got more time with his drivers at this track than anybody else around. They're looking for a possible 7th win at Nazareth.
This is, of course, Roger Penske's first year in the Indy Racing League, but we're certainly happy to have him in the league, and his team has certainly been very, very strong here in the first 4 races of the year. And if it continues the way it is right now, this could be the 2nd victory for Marlboro Team Penske. Well, Thomas Scheckter was eliminated earlier in a crash, but the Yamaha fastest lap of the race was turned in by Scheckter. That happened on lap number 82, and it was a lap at 167.202. Buddy Lazier was also eliminated in a crash. He has the 2nd fastest lap of the afternoon. Sam Hornish has moved up to 19th position now because he is out there and picking up laps. He is up to 19th now, but it certainly will be a loss of the points lead for Sam Hornish, or at least it will tighten the points lead up very, very tightly as we go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Sarah Fisher is running in 3rd spot. Now remember, she's substituting for Robbie Buell, and she was involved with a bit of an incident earlier in the race. She touched tires with another car, but she was able to keep going and has persevered from the 19th starting position and is currently running in 3rd, and I'm sure she and the Brian Reinbold team, Purex team, also hopes that perhaps the red flag will come out and this race will be called. Scott Sharp is running in the second position. Giafoni is fourth. Elio Castro-Neves is fifth, and so Marlboro Team Penske now has the first and fifth place drivers. A great run for Alex Barron, who is shown in sixth position, and also a great run for Sam Schmidt and Anthony Lazzaro, as they are currently in the seventh spot. Eddie Cheever eighth, Boat ninth, and Hattori is 10th. And for those of you tuning in to ABC Sports, stay tuned because the EA Sports Supercross will be shown in its entirety as soon as we finish up this race. And the status is that we are under caution. 188 out of 225 laps completed, and the caution is because of a crash involving George Mack, but that incident was cleaned up a while ago. Really, the reason for the caution at the moment is because of the light rain that is continuing to fall here at Nazareth. It has sporadically throughout the day, never enough to cause a major dampening of the track, but just enough to keep the cars from at top speed. On board with Scott Sharp, who is currently in second position. And Scott Goodyear, maybe we can talk with this gentleman with whom we ride.
Scott Sharp, Scott Goodyear in the booth. Can you hear us?
Yes, Scott.
Looks like some of that Kelly strategy has paid off for you today.
Tom and all the guys have just done a great job. You know, real team effort today. We hung in there and kept improving the car, and you know, just got to see what happens here. You know, I think the track can be pretty good as long as the rain holds off, but it's just when it's spitting, it's sort of in a bit of an unknown.
Well, if we go back to green, good luck.
Very much.
Scott Sharp currently in second position, down to Gary Gerald.
Well, we're on this medical patrol, it seems, and here's George Mack out of the medical center. You appear to be all right. We watched the replay. You got up there awful high into the gray stuff, and there's just no saving grace. You couldn't hang on to it at all, huh?
Oh, no, not at all. This track is not forgiving at all. But obviously, we're pretty quick, you know, because we qualified very well. But unfortunately, we went over Giovanna car just has a hard time adhering to the surface. It's really cold.
Yeah. Really cold. And hopefully it'll be a whole lot warmer next month at Indianapolis. I know you're excited about that. We wish you well.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Thanks.
All right. He ran 2:22 in ROP, Bob, at Indy. Guy to keep an eye on.
Well, yeah, in rookie orientation, we expect big things from him. We'll return with more of the Firestone Indy 225 after a word from our ABC stations.
Here at Texas Stadium in Irving, Texas, including Ricky Carmichael, who has been the dominant rider in the sport over the past 2 years. He's continued that dominance, but hasn't been invincible. A horrific crash last week in Pontiac, but he's got 8 wins already. He leads the series standings. In the 125 West, the 16-year-old James Stewart has had his problems, but he's got 2 wins, and he leads the way. EA Sports Supercross coming up next from Dallas.
Our coverage of the 86th running of the Indianapolis 500 begins on Saturday, May the 11th at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, as we'll have pole day as they run for the front starting spots in the Indy 500. Then bump day on Sunday, May 19th. That's at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. We determine the fastest 33. And don't forget, of course, the Indianapolis 500 itself, which will be on at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, Sunday, May the 26th. The 86th greatest spectacle in racing, live on ABC. We hope to go back to racing here in a few moments. The IRL officials are studying the situation, and they believe that the track is in good enough shape to go back to green flag racing. We're at the 193 lap mark out of 225, and again, that is Jill DeFerrin at the front of the field. DeFerrin last pitted on lap 95, and we are on lap 193 right now, so he has gone almost 100 laps. Some of those, of course, under caution since he pitted. And Scott Sharp last pitted on lap 27 along with Sarah Fisher. Giafoni on 137, and Castro-Neves pitted relatively recently on lap 178 during this caution period.
Bob, we just got a radio call there from Al Unser Jr. He was telling his crew it's still very slippery out here, so that's something to keep in the back of the mind, too. And some indicate the Penske team's running out of time here as far as DeFerrin is concerned in fuel. Jack?
Well, Gary, remember remember one thing, when we talk about fuel consumption, what about the Ilmore teams? And I use the plural. Your leader, Ilmore, is their engine, the Chevy assembler. Well, Scott Sharp, who runs in second, Tom Kelly is also a partner with Roger Penske in the Ilmore team. I think with the fuel consumption that Team Penske is getting, if I was Tom Kelly, I'd want to find out what was in that Ilmore that got delivered to Reading, Pennsylvania.
If we keep picking up pace car speed. The
There have been 4 leaders in this race. Gil DeFerrin has led the most laps, 58. Al Unser Jr. has led 54. Castro Neves 51 and Sharp 32. We have had 6 caution periods for 105 laps. So almost a half of this race is being run under the caution. And again, remind you that this EA Sports Supercross from Texas Stadium will be coming up next here on ABC at the conclusion of this race.
Bob, I'm just wondering, what does Roger Penske do now? He's right on the tip of the pyramid. Does he try and stay out and not give up any track position? You know he has to stop. You know they're going to try and go green. So is the best bet to bring the car in now as fast as you can, get it a splash of fuel to go the last few laps, not a full load, and then hope that he can whiz his way through traffic?
Well, given the weather situation that we have had here today, that is sprinkles, but not enough to dampen the track, it would seem that he would have to come in here, get a splash, because I quite honestly think this race is going to go the distance, and we're only 28 laps away from that right now. Gary?
Well, Bob, we're trying to find out down here in the Penske Cap, because it's now 102 laps since they were last in the pits for fuel, how much longer they can go. They're playing everything, obviously, very, very close to the vest. We wouldn't expect anything different from the captain and his crew, but there is no indication whatsoever yet of these guys. I mean, the body language doesn't say, hey, we're about to pounce over the wall and try to fuel this car before we go green.
Well, Gary, very interestingly, we see here that 68 of the 100 laps that Gil has run so far have been underneath a yellow caution period. So we know there might be some fuel in the tank to go quite a few more laps under yellow. The big gamble will be, when do we go green, and will there be enough fuel in there to run those green flag laps? Obviously, Scott Sharp is certainly hoping that that is not the situation. We know we probably have another 3, 4, possibly 5 laps to go before we're going to go back to green. And what is actually happening right now is that the IRL is assessing each individual turn to see if it is dry enough. They're speaking to the turn workers and to the officials on those turns to see if their track in front of them is dry enough to go back to green.
Scott, one of the predicaments that Scott Sharp will find himself in is the running order out on the racetrack. They've been talking on the radio about the fact that it's one of his teammates, Al Unser Jr., directly in front of him, and in front of him, the Airlink car of rookie Ricky Treadway. Under normal circumstances, Scott Sharp could stab and steer quickly on the restart, but they've determined they want to let the tires come up to heat. So they've told Scott to be very conservative at the drop of the green flag and try and initiate the passes as long as maybe 2 or 3 laps after green.
That sounds like a good plan. At least 5 laps, maybe 10, before you get proper tire temperature, which would be your maximum tire temperature for today, which still is well below the usual that they would see on a Firestone situation. We talked about 80 to 100 degree of ambient temperature to get a good track temperature up over 100. We're not seeing that here today. All these guys are going to have to be very cautious on the restart. We look here at the track conditions. The wind has actually changed since we started this morning. The wind speed of 5 miles an hour is not an issue right now. It's the air temperature and the track temperature, probably 30, 40 degrees below what we would expect to see here right now. All these drivers know they only have a few laps left coming up here to the finish, and they certainly don't want to make a mistake. They're after championship points, but they also don't want to cause a lot of work for their team if they have an accident coming up to the Indianapolis 500.
There are 11 cars currently on the lead lap. Al Unser Jr. is the next car not on the lead lap. He's running in 12th position. Then Robbie McGee, and race control still has not decided on a green flag. So we continue to run under the caution here. And again, Sam Hornish now moves up to 18th position. He is 49 laps back of the leader due to that incident early on in the race.
under caution, Bob. It's very interesting to look at all the spotters up here on the roof beside our television booth, each talking to each other, trying to make some plans about what's going to happen here in the next little while. And that doesn't happen just at the very front. It also happens all the way through. People in the middle of the pack or the back of the pack. Everybody's looking for points here.
Word is from race control, we will go green in 2 more laps.
And Scott Sharp may be getting a bit of a break. The report given to Scott is that Rick Treadway, one of the cars between himself and the leader, may be pitting this time around. If that unfolds, then the only car separating himself from the leader would be his teammate, Al Unser Jr. They have already discussed the possibility of Sharp being able to initiate a pass in turn 3. You just saw Treadway pull onto pit road and we're getting ready for the green.
Less than 23 laps until the checkered flag comes out, and again, you'll see Supercross in its entirety at the conclusion of this event.
Bob, I'm told that they're going to they pulled the pace car off and they're going to let DeFerrin set the pace to try to determine how wet it is and how fast they can go.
The pace has picked up here, but we are not under green. We're just checking the racetrack, testing it.
Okay, we're not going here, guys. We're going to keep this pace a minute. Just stay like this, Jill.
Just stay what you're doing. Just keep going like that. Just be sure we're just see where we are here.
That first voice you heard was Brian Barnhart, the chief steward for this event, speaking directly to Jill, letting him know that it will not be a green flag. And there's probably some radio communication going on right now from Jill to his people directly to Brian Barnhart.
Okay, slow
the
down,
results of what's happening on the
guys.
racetrack.
We're going to get ready to go here in a minute. I'm going to let the 55 go back around you and put him in the back of the field.
The yellow and black car of Rick Treadway you just saw go past the Marlboro car of DeFerrin. The reason that was done is he went into the pit, had a pit stop, came back out, was in the middle of all those cars, and they let him go back around, pick up a lap.
Now there are just 20 laps to go, so when the green does come out, we're going to have a shootout to the finish. When they come around, the drivers will be given the, green flag indicating 1 lap till we go back to racing. Again, the field is DeFerrin, then Sharp, then Fisher, Giafoni, Castro Neves, Barron, Lazaro, Cheever, Hattori, and Dare. Those 11 cars on the lead lap. Now, Al Unser Jr. is the second car in line. You see his name to the right.
And Bobby's already told his teammate that we'll be able to pass him.
They're coming to green on lap number 207, Paul.
Green. They are going to have to be so very careful as they come back to green. Full track, full tires. Wait for pressures to come up. Giafoni moves on Sarah Fisher, almost gets trapped. Fisher gives him room. Giafoni around Fisher. On the backstretch, Sharp still behind his teammate Al Unser Jr.
A great bold move by Giafoni to go underneath there and pull tires underneath Fisher in turn 2.
113 laps and still DeFerrin has been in the pit.
5 on fuel.
DeFerrin still leads it.
In your mirrors.
Sharp looks like he's not quite up to the pace that he needs to be able to catch up to DeFerrin.
In your mirrors, looking inside.
Giafoni clear. The inside. Gets dropped off.
I will tell you, Giafoni probably had his heart pump up about 20 more beats per minute. Now he's got to control himself, his emotions, and just start to get back up to pace and catch up to Sharp again and have another run at him.
When you do something like that, you get committed, then you lose momentum. And you've got to get the car rolling again. So Giafoni drops back. Sharp finally gets Al Unser Jr. 210 laps are now complete. 15 to go.
Well, we heard that Sharp was going to wait a few laps to make sure the tire temperatures came up, the pressures came up. Certainly has done that, and that is a smart move on his part.
Hey, guys, we just heard now that the message has been indicated to DeFerrin that he needs to get 2.2 miles per gallon to be able to go the distance. We talked to Tim Cedric before the start of the race, asking him about what kind of mileage you can make. He said, below 2. I said, can you go 2.2 in order to get 75 full laps under green? He said, yeah, we should be able to do that. If he can make 2.2, he may be able to make the distance.
Well, when you say that, let's not forget that Cheever ran out of fuel here back in 1995 with a lap and a half to go when he was driving for A.J. Foyt. They played the gamble, and it didn't work out.
Philippe Giaffoni now coming up again, trying to work on Scott Sharp. Sharp closing on DeFerrin. DeFerrin trying to save fuel. DeFerrin's in an awful position. He's got to save fuel, but he's also got to keep going fast. He's got to keep Sharp off of his back.
Absolutely. And what happens, Paul, is when you say save fuel, what they're doing is that they're making the engine run lean. Instead of running 100% fuel, the pits are instructing him to make the engine run lean. 95% fuel. They give away 5% in a situation like that to try to make up some fuel mileage. Less horsepower is the result of doing something like that. Less speed on the racetrack, and this is why Sharp is probably starting to catch up to him.
Now just 10 laps to go. And can DeFerrin make it? And if he can't, can Scott Sharp hold off a charging Felipe Giaffoni, who can run with as much fuel as he likes right now?
The number for DeFerrin coming down, 2.15 is now necessary. So he's meeting the obligation, it appears, inside 10 to go.
Well, if there is any guy in the sport who knows how to drive on that razor edge, it is Gil DeFerrin. Technically, he's absolutely superb. Giaffoni closes on Sharp now. Battle's going to heat up for second here in a second.
That's exactly what's happening. Now, think Sharp has not had very good finishes all this year, has had a lot of bad luck. Certainly looking at some points to get himself up in the points championship. Obviously wants to win this race, but he certainly doesn't want to have a situation where he gives away points.
And Sharp doesn't want to run up too close on DeFerrin. He wants a little space, so if he can take a run on him, he needs that distance. But at the same time, he's got a quandary going because he's got to keep Felipe Giaffoni totally off of his back, and that's a problem for him as well.
You see, he fell back a little bit there, and now he's on the gas. Looks like he's having trouble right there in turn 2. You can hear him. You hear his team telling him 5 laps to go. He gets a good run going into 3, and then he has a shot coming out of here, going up to 1. He needs a good run all the way up through 1 and 2 to get him going down through into turn 3, which is the best passing place. You can see here from the Firestone information, still doing 170, 72 miles an hour in the turns. It's a quick pace at this late race stage.
Firestone telemetry is so cool. Too bad it doesn't give us fuel mileage.
Well, if we got information from the teams, Paul, I'm not sure they tell us.
Sharp's right up on DeFerrin now. 221 laps complete. If you're sitting in this car, Scott Sharp, you're looking at the leader ahead, you're looking at him closing on traffic. What do you do?
Well, he's hoping that the car in front of him looks like it was Rick Treadway. They'll catch up to them very quickly. It will slow down DeFerrin. He might be able to get a run on him, but you have to hope it happens at the right place on the racetrack, because this is a one-line racetrack, very difficult to pass, which we've seen all day. Sharp gets very wide. I would say the Sharp's car right now has probably got a little bit of push, a little bit of understeer. The front of the car is not responding quite as well as he needs it to in traffic. He gets a run at DeFerrin, and he gets close, and then he seems to lose that front end.
Treadway moves to the side. Gil DeFerrin comes around. His car's got to be running on fumes. Coming to the white flag next time around for Gil DeFerrin. Sharp is there. He knows he's out of time now. If he's going to pass him, it's going to have to be in turn 3 of this lap. Sharp closes.
He's up.
Sharp goes around.
There you go, buddy. Bring her home, big Chevy. Bring her home. Come on, boy.
He was a quarter of a mile short. Gil DeFerrin didn't make it. Scott Sharp takes the win.
We said that just a moment ago. The same situation happened with Cheever back in 1995. And you have to say, Scott Sharp drove a smart race, didn't get too excited. He could have overdrove the car to try to catch up to Gil DeFerrin, but he played it smart.
Not your fault, Jill. You did everything you could. 7th career win for Scott Sharp.
Hey, Scott Sharp, Scott Goodyear in the booth. Did you read us?
Scott you guys. Boy, I just don't know what to say. Thank the Lord above for just an incredibly safe day. Really watched out for us and put all my faith in him. But Tom Kelly and the Delphi team just did awesome pit stop, kept us in the race. Yeah!
Well, the luck that you guys have had this year, you certainly deserved it. A nice, smart drive. Congratulations.
God.
There's no better feeling, guys, than going around knowing that you won the race and just looking for victory circle.
And that failure on the last lap by DeFerrin gave the points lead back to Sam Hornish. It's running that tight.
That tight. And that would have been the first time since the beginning of 2001, excuse me, that Sam Hornish would not have been in the points lead if that was Gilles DeFerrin winning the race today. So that's an incredible.
Pole sitter last year in the 85th Indy 500. The 86th Indy 500 is next. You're going to see it right here on ABC. What does that do for Scott Sharp in terms of driving him into Indy?
Well, it certainly takes the momentum here because he's had such a rough time this year, and I'll tell you that they've got the momentum now.
Gary Gerald.
I'm glad this is, you're thinking you're glad you weren't in Atlantic City, but it's got to be crushing to come so close, Roger.
Well, we saw a fuel dropout on the back straightaway, and, you know, he was making fuel. We were in good shape, but, you know, we're a couple turns from being there. Obviously, that's what it's all about. Well, we finished third. Both cars finished. Helps us in the points with Hornish having a problem. So, at the end of the day, that's what makes racing.
And you go on to Indianapolis. If you were at Indy, you'd make the same gamble?
I've got to make the gamble every time, but you know, what can I say? It was both cars did a job. We had a tough pit stop here at one point, got us a little bit behind, but hey, everybody has a strategy here, and they all used it.
Thank you, Roger. Jack?
Well, one man that made the right call, TK, Tom Kelly, you called the strategy for this guy.
I'll tell you, I thought we were going to be out of luck there at the end, but you know, Scotty kept pushing Jill, and he ran out of fuel with a half lap to go, man. Nice job.
Awesome job. These guys were great. Tom did a great job calling. It's the second race we won because of you, buddy. And I just got back to man above. Just kept the hammer down. I really thought, you know, so hard to pass here. Really thought that was it. But I said, maybe he's going to run out one of these days. And all of a sudden, sure enough, right in front of me, and I just had to gas it and hope.
Let's talk real quick, though, Scott, about the teamwork from not only your teammate, Al Unser Jr., but also from the rookie, Ricky Treadway, because they got out of the way. They waited until your tires got up to temperature, but then you had a clear shot.
Al was great. You know, he really was. We were working really well as teammates, and, you know, I guess I owe him one now, but, you know, both guys really let the leaders go for it, which was great.
All right, momentum is so important leading up to the Indianapolis 500. We've looked at your demeanor over the last couple of weeks, and it has changed considerably. You've got a score to settle there.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm excited. I can't believe it. I really thought we turned a corner when we came and tested here. Great test at Indy. Win here. We're ready to go to May.
Big Mo, so important, Gary Gerald, when Indy opens in just 10 days.
Well, you talk about momentum going into the month of May. Here's Philippe Giafone, who ends up in that second spot. What are you thinking as you're watching those two guys in front of you? How are you trying to play it for the last 5 laps?
I tried everything I could in the beginning, you know, but then I had some, like, 2 very close calls, and I was in the grass for a little while. Look at the grass there. And I was concerned a little bit that I upset the car for a few laps, but then for the last 3 laps, my car started to pick it up a little bit of push. And I knew the fight would be for Sharp, but at the end I thought maybe Gio is going to go for it, you know. And he tried and ran out of gas, so I'm very happy.
I guess you are. We wish you well next month. We enjoy watching you at Indy.
Thank you.
All right. Bob?
Felipe Giafone comes home second. Gilles DeFerrin third. Sarah Fisher fourth. Then Castro Neves. Alex Barron with a great run. Eddie Cheever Jr. finishes his first race of the year. Then Boat, Lazaro, and Torrey. In the second 10, Artendare leads that, and then Schechter, Herb, and Lazier, all of those involved in incidents. Gary Gerald is with DeFerrin.
Gilles DeFerrin, how do you accept something like this when it's so tantalizingly close? And you're a gourmet chef.
Well, I mean, it's not much you can do about this sort of thing. I mean, we knew it was going to be tight on fuel. I think it was a great strategy, nevertheless, by Roger and the whole team. And I was trying to do my best to save fuel, at the same time stay up front. And, you know, it unfortunately didn't work out. But I think it was another great run for the whole team. You know, the car was really handling very, very well. And, you know, that's just the way the chips fell today.
So close you could taste it.
I know. Tell me about it.
All right, Jack.
Gary, you are looking at the 4th place finisher at Nazareth in her, that's right, I said her, first Indy Racing League start of 2002. Sarah Fisher, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I couldn't do without the Purex Venice car. They rule. I mean, I had a perfect race car all day long, and, you know, it started out a little loose at the beginning, and then we just kept working on it a little bit with the weight checker, and, you know, the G-forces are pretty easy to tune if you get into that window, and it was just awesome.
Let's talk for a moment, though. It wasn't without its close moments for you, and yet you retained your composure when you pulled the car on the pit road, and Robbie Buell, the regular driver you're subbing for, was ready to change the nose, and yet the Dreyer-Reinbold team made a decision not to change anything, sent you back out.
I didn't know Robbie was going to change the nose. I have to give him some crap about that. Now, Robbie has been probably the perfect driver coach that any driver could have. He's been by my side the entire weekend, critiquing me, but in a very positive way, and you know, this is for him, definitely.
Bob? Quite a day for Sarah Fisher, who comes home in 4th position. Here are the points headed into the Indianapolis 500. Gilles de Ferran 5 behind Sam Hornish, who finished in 17th position today. Castro Neves is 3rd, then Giafoni and Scott Sharp in 5th position, picking up valuable points in his win here today as he passed de Ferran with less than a half a lap to go to the checkered flag. And Indianapolis is next. Qualifying, of course, Bubble Day, and also the 86th running of the Indianapolis 500. And so round 4 has been completed, and it wasn't neither Panther or Penske. Coming up next here on ABC Sports, EA Super Sports Supercross. Our next IRL race, the 86th running of the 500, Sunday, May 26, 11 Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific time. ABC Sports is online at ESPN.com, keyword ABC Sports. This has been a presentation of ABC Sports, continuing the tradition of excellence. Round 4 at Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and Scott Sharp emerges as the victor. Scott Sharp taking the lead with less than a half a lap to go when Gilles de Ferran runs out of fuel, and Scott Sharp rolls to victory in the Indy Racing League.